Welcome back to Bar Girl Baddies. Today's story is a bit different from our usual tales of bar romance gone wrong or bar girl betrayals. This one's about something quieter, something that creeps up on you so slowly you don't even realize it's happening until you're 5 years deep and wondering where the hell your life went. This is Marcus's story. He's a 32-year-old from Vancouver who came to Thailand chasing freedom, chasing adventure, chasing that digital nomad dream you see all over YouTube. And for a while, it worked. The sunshine, the cheap rent, the beautiful girlfriend, the easy life. But 5 years later, Marcus found himself trapped in a different kind of prison, one he built himself with cheap beer, endless tomorrows, and the quiet erosion of everything he used to be. This isn't a story about getting scammed or losing your money in one dramatic night. It's about something more insidious. It's about what happens when the dream becomes the cage. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from, and if you've ever felt stuck in paradise. If you've ever wondered whether you're living or just existing, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you're not alone. Alright, here's Marcus's story in his own words. I never thought I'd be one of those guys. You know the type. The expat who's been in Thailand for years, sitting at the same bar stall every night, telling the same stories to whoever will listen, slowly going soft around the middle while his life back home becomes a distant memory. I had a plan. I had ambition. I was going to be different. Funny how that works out. Let me take you back to Vancouver, 2018. I was 27, working as a financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm downtown. The job was fine, the pay was good. I had a decent apartment in Kitsilano, a gym membership I actually used, a circle of friends I'd known since university. On paper, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Climbing the ladder, building a career, being a responsible adult. But something was off. I couldn't shake this feeling that I was sleepwalking through my own life. Every morning was the same. Alarm at 6:30, shower, coffee, suit, SkyTrain downtown. Sit in an office with fluorescent lighting and recycled air for 9 hours, staring at spreadsheets and financial models, attending meetings that could have been emails. Then home, maybe hit the gym if I wasn't too tired, microwave something for dinner, watch Netflix until I fell asleep. Repeat. The weekends were slightly better, but not by much. Brunch with friends who complained about their jobs. Drinks at the same rotation of bars. The occasional hike up Grouse Mountain to convince ourselves we were outdoorsy. And the whole time, this voice in the back of my head kept asking, is this it? Is this all there is? My engagement had ended about 6 months before all this. Her name was Claire. We'd been together since third year at UBC, one of those relationships that just kind of happens because you're in the same friend group and it makes sense. Everyone assumed we'd get married. I assumed we'd get married. We got engaged on a trip to Tofino and, for about 3 months, I convinced myself I was happy. But Claire could see through me. She said I was emotionally absent, that I was going through the motions, that she felt like she was in a relationship with a ghost. She wasn't wrong, she ended it gently, said she wanted someone who was present, someone who actually wanted to be there. I didn't fight it. I think part of me was relieved. After Claire left, the sleepwalking feeling got worse. I'd sit at my desk at work and think about how I had maybe 40 more years of this ahead of me. 40 years of quarterly reports and client meetings and performance reviews. 40 years of grey skies and expensive rent and polite small talk with people I didn't really care about. The thought made my chest tight. I started having these mini panic attacks in the middle of the workday where I'd have to excuse myself and go stand in the bathroom stall just to breathe. That's when I started watching the videos. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd scroll through YouTube and fall into this rabbit hole of digital nomad content. You know the ones. 20-something kids working from laptops on beaches in Bali, expats in Chiang Mai, talking about how they live like kings on $2,000 a month. Remote workers in Medellin or Lisbon or Bangkok showing off their apartments and their lifestyles and their freedom. The algorithm kept feeding me more and more of it. And the more I watched, the more my life in Vancouver felt like a trap. The math was simple. I was paying $2,200 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Add in food, transport, gym, going out, and I was burning through almost $4,000 a month just to exist. And for what? Cold rain 9 months a year and a job that was slowly crushing my soul. Meanwhile, these people in the videos were living in tropical paradises, working a few hours a day, spending the rest of their time exploring and adventuring and actually living. It seemed too good to be true. But the more research I did, the more I realized it wasn't. It was real. People were actually doing this, and I could too. I started planning in secret. I didn't tell my parents or my friends, not yet. I just started saving aggressively. I cut my expenses down to nothing. No more eating out, no more drinks, no more unnecessary purchases. I put away almost half my salary every month. I started learning about remote work, taking online courses in digital marketing and SEO, building up skills that could translate into freelance income. I reached out to people in my network, pitched myself as a consultant, and slowly, it started working. I landed a couple of small contracts, then a bigger one with a startup in Seattle that needed marketing strategy work. They didn't care where I was based as long as I delivered results. 18 months after I started planning, I had $30,000 saved and a reliable remote income stream, bringing in about $4,000 a month. I quit my job on a Friday in March. My boss seemed genuinely confused. He asked if I had another offer, if there was something they could do to keep me. I just smiled and said I needed a change. My co-workers took me out for drinks that night, and I could see the envy in their eyes when I told them I was moving to Thailand. A few of them said things like, "Must be nice," or "Wish I had the guts to do that." I felt like I'd won something. I told my parents the week before I left. My dad was skeptical. He kept asking about health insurance and taxes and what my long-term plan was. My mum was worried, kept saying things like, "But you have such a good career here," and "What if something happens?" I tried to explain that I wasn't running away. I was running toward something. Toward freedom, toward adventure, toward actually living instead of just surviving. I don't think they understood. But they hugged me at the airport anyway and told me to call them when I landed. The flight from Vancouver to Bangkok was 13 hours. I barely slept. I just sat there staring out the window, heart pounding, thinking about how my entire life was about to change. When we finally descended through the clouds and I saw the sprawl of Bangkok below me, all lights and rivers and chaos, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. Genuine, nerve-tingling excitement. I spent 3 days in Bangkok getting my bearings, sorting out a Thai SIM card, adjusting to the heat and the noise and the overwhelming sensory overload of it all. Then I took a short flight up to Chiang Mai. I'd chosen Chiang Mai because everyone said it was the digital nomad capital, cheaper than Bangkok, more manageable, with a huge expat community and all the infrastructure you'd need. The moment I stepped off the plane, I knew I'd made the right choice. The air was warm and clean. The city was surrounded by mountains, and everything just felt more alive than Vancouver ever had. I found a condo through an expat Facebook group. A modern one-bedroom place near Niman, the trendy neighborhood where all the cafes and co-working spaces were. Fully furnished, fast Wi-Fi, a gym and pool in the building. 12,000 baht a month. That's about 450 Canadian dollars. Less than a quarter of what I was paying in Vancouver. I signed a 6-month lease and moved in the next day. Those first few weeks were absolutely magic. I'm not exaggerating. Everything felt new and exciting and full of possibility. I'd wake up to sunshine streaming through my windows instead of grey drizzle. I'd walk to a cafe for breakfast, get a massive plate of pad krapao or khao man gai for 60 baht, less than $2. I'd work from a co-working space surrounded by other location-independent people, designers and developers and writers and entrepreneurs, all of us living this life that felt impossibly cool. After work, I'd explore. I'd wander through the night markets, try street food I couldn't pronounce, get lost in the old city, ride a scooter up into the mountains just to watch the sunset. Everything was an adventure. Everything felt significant. The expat community was welcoming in a way I didn't expect. Within 2 weeks, I'd made more friends than I had in the last 2 years in Vancouver. There were weekly meetups, pub crawls, hiking trips, temple visits. Everyone was friendly and open and curious. We'd sit around at bars comparing stories about where we'd come from and why we'd left and what we were building. There was this shared understanding that we were all outsiders, all refugees from the 9-to-5 grind, all trying to create something better. It felt like belonging. I met Ploy about 6 weeks in. I'd started going to this little cafe called The Barn every morning because they had excellent flat whites and fast Wi-Fi. Ploy worked there. She was 26, from Bangkok originally, had moved to Chiang Mai to study hospitality management at Chiang Mai University. She was pretty in this understated way. No makeup, hair usually tied back, always wearing the cafe's uniform of a black shirt and jeans. But she had this smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We started chatting small talk at first, the usual stuff. Where are you from? How long have you been here? Do you like Chiang Mai? But then it deepened. She'd ask about my work, seemed genuinely interested when I explained what digital marketing was. I'd ask about her studies, her family, her plans for the future. She told me her dad worked for a tech company in Bangkok. Her mum was a teacher. She had a younger sister still in high school. They were comfortable, middle class, not wealthy, but not struggling either. She wanted to work in hotel management eventually, maybe open her own boutique guesthouse someday. She had ambition. She had plans. That mattered to me. I didn't want another Claire situation where I was the only one with drive. After about 2 weeks of daily coffee shop conversations, I asked her if she wanted to grab dinner. She said yes. We went to a little Isan restaurant in the old city, sat on plastic chairs under string lights, ate some tam and grilled chicken and sticky rice. She laughed at my awful attempts to speak Thai, taught me a few phrases, corrected my tones patiently. When I tried to pay, she insisted on splitting it. That impressed me. She wasn't looking for a free meal, she wanted equality. We started seeing each other regularly after that, a few times a week at first, then more. We'd meet after her shifts at the cafe, go for walks along the Ping River, explore temples, try new restaurants. She introduced me to her friends, a mix of Thai students and other young professionals. I introduced her to my expat circle, and she fit in seamlessly. Her English good enough that she could hold her own in conversations about travel and work and life philosophy. Everything felt natural, easy, uncomplicated. About 3 months in, we made it official. I don't remember a specific conversation where we decided to be exclusive. It just sort of happened. She started staying over at my place more often, keeping a toothbrush in my bathroom, leaving a change of clothes in my closet. We'd cook dinner together, watch movies with Thai subtitles, fall asleep tangled up in each other. It felt like the kind of relationship I'd never quite managed back home. No pressure, no expectations, just two people enjoying each other's company. Work was going well too. My contracts were steady, the Seattle startup had extended my retainer, and I'd picked up a couple more clients through referrals. I was making more than I'd made in my analyst job, working maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, and the rest of my time was mine. I'd work in the mornings, take Poi out for lunch on her break, work a bit more in the afternoon, then evenings were for living. I joined a Muay Thai gym, started training 3 times a week. I lost the weight I'd put on during my corporate years, got lean and tan. I felt good. I felt alive. My parents video called once a month, and I'd show them around my condo, introduce them to Ploy, tell them about the trips I was taking on weekends to Pai or Chiang Rai or the islands down south. My dad's skepticism had softened. He'd say things like, "You seem happy," and "I'm glad it's working out for you." My mum would ask about Ploy, whether it was serious, whether I'd thought about the future. I'd laugh it off, say I was just living in the moment, that I didn't need to have everything figured out. And I meant it. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't obsessing about the future or dwelling on the past. I was just here, present, content. 6 months turned into a year. The initial excitement mellowed into something deeper, more sustainable. Chiang Mai stopped being this exotic adventure and started feeling like home. I knew which street stalls had the best Thai soir, which bars had the cheapest singhas, which co-working spaces were quiet enough to take client calls. I had routines, I had favourite spots. I had a girlfriend I cared about and a life that felt full and meaningful. I'd video call friends back in Vancouver sometimes, and they'd tell me about their lives, their promotions and mortgages and relationship dramas, and I'd feel this quiet relief that I wasn't part of that world anymore. I'd made it out. I'd built something better. If you'd asked me then, a year into my Thailand life, whether I'd made the right choice leaving Vancouver, I would have said absolutely, without hesitation. Everything I'd hoped for had come true. The freedom, the adventure, the relationship, the lifestyle. I was living proof that the digital nomad dream wasn't just YouTube hype. It was real. It was mine. And I was never going back. But here's the thing about dreams. They're fragile. And the moment you stop building them, the moment you start coasting, they begin to crack. I didn't see it then. I was too comfortable, too convinced I'd figured it all out. But looking back now, that 1 year mark was the peak. That was the moment before everything started its slow, inevitable slide. I just didn't know it yet. 3 years into my Thailand life, something had shifted. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but the dream had calcified into something else entirely. Routine, comfort, stagnation. The things that had felt exciting in year one, the morning markets and sunset scooter rides and spontaneous weekend trips, had become background noise. I still lived in the same condo near Nimon. I still worked from the same co-working spaces. I still saw the same rotation of expat faces at the same bars. But the spark, that feeling of possibility that had carried me through those first months, had dimmed to almost nothing. Poi had moved in officially about 18 months into our relationship. It happened gradually, the way these things do. A few nights a week became most nights. Most nights became every night. Then one day I realised all her stuff was at my place, and she'd stopped paying rent on her little studio across town. I didn't mind at first. It felt like a natural progression, like we were building something together. She'd quit her job at the cafe around the same time, said she wanted to focus on finishing her degree. I supported that. I was making good money, enough for both of us, and I liked the idea of being the kind of partner who could help her achieve her goals. But she never quite finished that degree. There was always something. An issue with her credits transferring, a problem with a professor, a family emergency that pulled her focus away. After a while, I stopped asking about it. She spent most of her days at the condo, sleeping in while I worked, scrolling through her phone, occasionally cooking something for lunch, going out with friends I never met. In the evenings, we'd order food, watch Netflix, exist in the same space without really connecting. The sex had become mechanical, routine, something we did out of habit rather than desire. When I tried to talk about it, about us, about where we were heading, she'd get quiet and distant, say everything was fine, that I worried too much. The money was the thing that gnawed at me most. I'd started sending money to her family about a year in. It began small, 5,000 baht here and there when her mum needed medicine or her sister needed school supplies. But it grew. 10,000. 15. 20. Every month, regular as clockwork. Her dad's tech job apparently didn't pay as well as I thought. Or maybe it did, and this was just how things worked here. I tell myself it was normal, that in Thai culture supporting your partner's family was expected, that I was being a good boyfriend. But deep down, I knew I was buying something. I just didn't want to name what it was. My work had started to suffer. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in small ways that accumulated. I'd miss deadlines by a day or two, deliver work that was good enough but not great, stop proactively reaching out to new clients. The Seattle startup dropped me after I botched a campaign launch by forgetting to schedule posts during a particularly heavy drinking weekend. I told myself it was fine, that I had other clients, that I could afford to coast a bit. But my income was shrinking while my expenses stayed the same. I was dipping into savings more months than not, watching the cushion I'd built up in Vancouver slowly evaporate. The drinking had become a thing too. Nothing crazy, nothing that would make you think I had a problem, but more than I used to. I'd always have a beer or two with lunch at one of the Nimon cafes, another couple in the afternoon while I pretended to work. Then evenings were for the bar, usually the Old City Tavern or Lost Hiker, places where expats gathered to tell stories and complain about visa runs and laugh at tourists. I'd stumbled into this crew of long-timers, guys who'd been in Chiang Mai for 5, 8, 10 years. They had Thai wives or girlfriends, taught English or ran small online businesses, and spent most of their free time drinking and philosophizing about why Thailand was better than wherever they'd come from. I fit right in. Too well. There was Dave, a 48-year-old Australian who'd been in Chiang Mai for 9 years, taught at a language school, had a Thai wife and 2 kids he rarely saw because he spent every evening at the bar. There was Miguel, a Spanish guy in his mid-30s who'd come on a 2-week holiday 6 years ago and never left, surviving on sporadic web design gigs and his girlfriend's family's money. There was John, an American from Ohio, 52, divorced twice, living on a modest pension and disability payments, partnered with a woman 30 years younger who he suspected was seeing other men but didn't confront because that would mean facing the truth. These were my friends. These were the people I spent my time with, and I never once stopped to think about what that said about me. We'd sit there night after night, same bar stools, same rotation of stories, Dave would talk about the good old days when Chiang Mai was cheaper and less touristy. Miguel would complain about visa regulations. John would make cynical jokes about relationships and money and the fundamental impossibility of trust. And I'd laugh along, drink my Changs, feel part of something. But underneath it all was this creeping awareness that I was becoming them, that I'd stopped moving forward, that I was just existing, treading water, waiting for something to happen without doing anything to make it happen. Ploy had grown distant in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. She'd go out with friends and not come back until 3 or 4 in the morning. She'd be on her phone constantly, messaging people, laughing at things she wouldn't share with me. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd get defensive, say I was being controlling, that she needed her own life. I suspected she was seeing someone else, maybe multiple someones, but I didn't confront her because confirming it would mean having to make a decision, and making a decision would mean disrupting the comfortable numbness I'd settled into. So I just ignored it. Drank a bit more. Stayed out a bit later. Let the relationship hollow out while we both pretended everything was fine. The collapse came in October, 3.5 years after I'd arrived. My biggest remaining client, a marketing agency in Toronto that had kept me on retainer for over a year, sent me an email. They were restructuring, bringing marketing in-house. They appreciated my work, but they'd no longer be needing my services. Just like that, 60% of my income disappeared. I sat there staring at the email, feeling this cold dread settle into my stomach. I opened my banking app and looked at my balance. $12,000. That was all I had left. $12,000 and no reliable income, and a girlfriend who cost me 30,000 baht a month minimum, plus rent, plus my own expenses, plus the drinking and the lifestyle I'd built around pretending everything was fine. I needed to tell Ploy. I needed to have the conversation I'd been avoiding for months. That night I came home early, found her on the couch watching some Thai drama on her phone. I sat down next to her and said, "We need to talk about money." She looked at me warily. I explained the situation. The lost client, the dwindling savings, the fact that I needed to cut back expenses significantly while I figured out my next move. I suggested maybe she could get a part-time job. Maybe we could split costs more evenly. Maybe her family could manage without the monthly contributions for a while. She went quiet. That stone-faced quiet Thai people do when they're angry but too polite to show it. Then she said, "So you want me to work at a cafe again, after everything?" I said it wasn't about what I wanted, it was about what we needed. She laughed, bitter and cold. "You told me you'd take care of things," she said. "You told me not to worry about money. You wanted me to quit my job. You wanted to support my family. And now that it's hard, you want me to fix it?" She wasn't wrong. I had said those things. I had wanted to be the provider, the generous Farang boyfriend who could afford to be magnanimous, but I'd built that identity on a foundation of income I no longer had, and savings that were almost gone. I tried to explain that, tried to make her understand that things had changed. She just shook her head. She said, "I need to think about this." Then she got up and went to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. The next few days were tense and silent. She barely spoke to me. She'd leave the condo in the mornings without saying where she was going, come back late at night, sleep on the far edge of the bed with her back to me. I tried to focus on finding new clients, sending pictures, updating my portfolio, but my heart wasn't in it. I'd been coasting for so long, I'd forgotten how to hustle. Every rejection email felt like confirmation of what I already knew. I'd let myself go soft. I'd stopped being valuable. I'd become just another expat drift, no ambition, no drive, just killing time in paradise. 2 weeks after that conversation, I came home to find Ploy packing. Not just a few things for a trip, but everything. Her clothes, her toiletries, the kitchen stuff we bought together, the small TV I'd gotten for the bedroom. She was loading it all into bags while a friend waited outside with a truck. I asked what she was doing. She didn't look at me. She said, "I'm going back to Bangkok. This isn't working anymore." I asked if we could talk about it, if there was a way to fix things. She finally looked up and her face was hard, closed off. "There's nothing to fix, Tom. You're broke. You're drunk half the time. You've stopped trying. I can't build a life with someone who's given up." She wasn't wrong about any of it. I wanted to defend myself, to argue, to make her stay. But I couldn't find the words. I just stood there while she finished packing, while her friend helped her carry everything down to the truck, while she walked past me one last time without saying goodbye. She got in the truck and they drove off, and I stood in the doorway of my condo watching the taillights disappear down the soy. Then I went inside, closed the door, and looked around at the half-empty space. No furniture, no TV, just my laptop and clothes, and the echo of 3 years I'd wasted pretending I was building something. I sat down on the floor and tried to feel something. Sadness, anger, relief. But there was just numbness. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old photos of us from those first months, her smiling at me over street food, the two of us on a beach in Koh Lanta, a selfie from some temple in the mountains. We looked happy in those photos. Maybe we were. Or maybe we were both just playing roles. Her, the sweet Thai girlfriend, me, the successful foreign boyfriend, neither of us quite real. I spent the next week barely leaving the condo. I ordered food in, ignored messages from the bar crew, let work emails pile up unanswered. I opened a bottle of Sangsom one night and drank half of it sitting on my balcony, looking out at the Nimman skyline, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. But I knew. It went wrong the moment I stopped moving forward. The moment I mistook comfort for happiness. The moment I convinced myself that sitting in the same bar every night with the same broke expats was the same thing as living. I checked my bank balance, got $9,000 left. I did the math. I could maybe stretch that for another 6 months if I cut everything to the bone, or I could accept what I already knew. It was over. Thailand hadn't failed me. I'd failed Thailand. I'd come here to escape, not to build. And escape is fine for a while, but eventually you have to become something. You have to move toward a goal, create value, grow. I'd done none of that. I just existed, coasted, slowly dissolved into cheap beer and empty days. I called my parents. I hadn't spoken to them in months, kept making excuses why I couldn't do our video calls. My mum answered, her face lighting up when she saw me, then immediately falling when she read my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked. And I told her. All of it. The lost clients, the money, employee leaving, the fact that I had no plan and no income and no idea what I was doing anymore. I expected judgment. I expected to hear "I told you so." But my mum just listened, her face soft with concern, and when I finished she said, "Come home, Marcus. Just come home, we'll figure it out." I booked a flight for 2 weeks later. I spent those final days tying up loose ends, ending my lease, selling what little furniture I had left, saying goodbye to the few people I still cared about. The bar crew threw me a little going-away thing at the old city tavern. Dave gave me a hug and said, "You'll be back, they always come back." Miguel said something about how Thailand gets in your blood. John just raised his glass and said, "Good luck, mate, you're smarter than the rest of us." I flew out of Chiang Mai on a rainy November morning. The mountains were hidden behind clouds, the city grey and subdued. I felt nothing, no sadness, no relief, just a dull acknowledgement that this chapter was over. When I landed in Vancouver 18 hours later, my parents were waiting at arrivals. My dad took my bags without a word. My mum hugged me tight, and I felt something crack inside. I started crying right there in the airport, big, ugly sobs I couldn't control, and she just held me and said, "It's okay, you're home now, it's okay, I'm 35 now. I've been back in Vancouver for about 8 months. I'm living with my parents while I rebuild, doing freelance marketing work, saving money slowly, trying to figure out who I am without the Thailand fantasy propping me up. It's humbling, being back in my childhood bedroom, starting over from scratch, watching my old UBC friends with their careers and houses and families, while I'm essentially a teenager again. But I'm sober, I'm working, I'm facing reality instead of running from it. I don't talk to Ploy. I don't know where she is or what she's doing. I hope she's okay. I hope she found someone who could give her what she needed. I don't blame her for leaving. She was just surviving, playing the hand she was dealt. I was the one who built a life out of nothing and called it freedom. I was the one who confused escape with purpose. Thailand didn't ruin me. I did that myself. People ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd never gone. And honestly, I don't know. Those first months were some of the happiest of my life. I felt alive in a way I'd never felt before, but the cost was 5 years and almost all my savings and a version of myself I'm not proud of. Was it worth it? I can't answer that. All I know is that geography can't fix what's broken inside you. You can run to Thailand or Bali or anywhere else, But if you're not building towards something real, if you're just hiding, eventually you'll have to come home and face yourself. And that's the hardest part of all. That's Marcus's story. And I want to sit with this for a moment before we close out, because this one hits different than our usual tales. Marcus wasn't scammed. He wasn't betrayed by some bar girl who cleaned out his bank account. He wasn't even particularly unlucky. He just stopped trying. He went to Thailand looking for an escape and found exactly that. An escape from ambition, from growth, from the uncomfortable work of becoming someone. And 5 years later, he woke up and realized he'd become nothing at all. Thailand isn't the villain here. Ploy isn't the villain here. Marcus isn't even really the villain. He's just a guy who made the same mistake thousands of expats make every year. He confused comfort with happiness. He thought that because life was easy and cheap and pleasant, he was winning. But winning requires movement, progress, building towards something. Sitting still in paradise is still just sitting still. Here's what nobody tells you about the expat life, especially in Southeast Asia. It's easy to arrive. It's hard to stay for the right reasons. When you can live well on a fraction of what you'd spend back home, when the weather is perfect and the food is cheap and the women are beautiful, it's incredibly easy to just coast, to stop pushing yourself, to stop growing. You tell yourself you're living the dream, but really you're just comfortable. And comfort, unchecked, becomes stagnation. Stagnation becomes decay. And decay becomes the life Marcus lived, drinking away his evenings with other men who arrived with dreams and stayed, because leaving would mean admitting those dreams had died. If you're in Thailand right now, if you're an expat living that digital nomad life, ask yourself honestly, are you building something or are you hiding from something? Are you there because you have a purpose, a goal, a reason that goes deeper than cheap rent and good weather? Or are you there because it's easier than facing whatever you left behind? There's no judgment in that question. Sometimes we need to escape, sometimes we need to heal, but escape can't be permanent. Eventually, you have to turn around and build. Marcus is back in Canada now, starting over, doing the hard work he avoided for 5 years. He says he doesn't regret Thailand, but you can hear the regret in every word of his story. Not regret for going, but regret for staying too long. For letting comfort become a cage. For waking up one day and realizing he'd traded his 20s and early 30s for nothing but memories of bars he can't quite remember, and a relationship built on money instead of love. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Paradise is a beautiful place to visit. It's a terrible place to stop growing. Thailand will let you coast for as long as your money holds out. It will let you drink and drift and pretend you're living while you're really just existing. But time doesn't stop just because you're comfortable. Your savings still drain. Your skills still atrophy. Your life still passes. And one day you'll wake up and realize you're 40 or 50, broke and directionless. And all those years you thought you were winning, you were actually just slowly losing. Don't be Marcus. Don't mistake escape for freedom. And if you are Marcus, if you're reading this and recognizing yourself in his story, it's not too late. Come home. Face yourself. Do the work. Build something real. Because the hardest truth of all is this: you can run to the other side of the world, but you can't run from yourself. Eventually, you have to turn around and do the thing you've been avoiding. You have to grow up. Thanks for watching Bar Girl Baddies. If this story hit you, if you've lived some version of it, or you know someone who has, drop a comment below. Share your experience. And if you're still in Thailand, still trying to figure out if you're building or hiding, be honest with yourself. That honesty might save you years of your life. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves out there.